The Great American Race.
An exciting time of year.
The Super Bowl of auto racing.
Every time I drive through that tunnel, I get chills.
The Daytona 500.
What a crazy race to watch as a fan.
No matter what you call it,
It's just something I can't let go of.
NASCAR calls it the biggest race of the season.
Charge up every time we roll in here.
A win at the World Center of Racing
That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
can change your career forever.
Never know what could happen.
But to get to victory lane is no easy task.
Finish the race and you can finish first.
Plenty of patience,
There's a tremendous amount of variables that you can't control here.
the perfect strategy,
Each guy's going to have their own unique plan going into the race.
and you have to have a little bit of luck.
You have no idea who's going to win. It could be anybody's race.
You try to get your heart rate down, you get a sip of water, and then when they tell you to go, you pull your belts tighter than you've ever pulled them in your entire life because you know something big is about to happen.
Oh, a late crash setting up a frantic race to the finish at the Daytona 500. Look, it took an extra day, but certainly a great ending in the Super Bowl of auto racing. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Action Sports Shack's Cupdate. I am Action Sports Shack's Stuart Weber, here to bring you the latest when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series. One race in the books with 35 more to go over the course of the season, but of course the first race is always the biggest race when it comes to NASCAR with the Daytona 500, and the fans had to wait a whole extra day with that rain out on Sunday down at the World Center of Racing. The Daytona 500, such a big race and so many variables that go into it each and every year. But let's talk about one of the things that always happens, and that is the big one. It happened with less than 10 laps to go in this year's edition of the Daytona 500, and relatively little attrition until that point. When you're talking about cars leaving due to accidents and mechanical issues, you still had a pretty full field all the way late into the race when a misguided push from Alex Bowman on the back of William Byron turned a whole lot of cars on their way into the fence. I think this is my favorite image from the entire race. You take a look at the fan with his arms raised high. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he is not a Joey Logano fan, as you see the number 22 car up in the fence. And this wreck took out a great deal of competitors and a great deal of the best competitors in this race. Tyler Reddick included. Of course, he won one of the duels on Thursday night, but Joey Logano, defending Cup Series champion Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin had some accidents and some damage from that wreck as well. So many of the top drivers, including your defending Daytona 500 champion Ricky Stenhouse Jr., forced to the garage after the big one happens at Daytona. So the second big wreck, well, it ended the race because it came as the field came to the white flag. Remember the rules. If you cross the start-finish line before that caution flag flies, well, the race is going to end when the caution flag flies, and it does for William Byron as the winner of the Daytona 500 because, as judged by the video, he was just ahead of his teammate Alex Bowman at the time the caution flag flew. And that's not really a flag as much as the button. You look for the timing. It freezes the field, and you figure out who is in front, because they don't want to get involved with all the stuff going on. And so William Byron, your Daytona 500 champion for Team Hendrick. What a win for the young driver, the number 24.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, this race takes so much to go your way and so many little things that happen. And I just felt like our team did a great job all day of just managing all the adversity we had. And, you know, just we put ourselves in position at the end to have a shot. And it's been a special place to get a few wins here. And it really kind of kick-started my career, you know, in my third year getting a win. So I'm just super blessed and thankful that it's worked out the way it has. And there's still a lot more to accomplish, though. We got to keep it going and try to continue this.
So as big a win as this was for Byron, obviously he was one of the top drivers from a year ago. This is an even bigger win for his team. Team Hendrick starting off year number 40 as an organization. And you think about what Rick Hendrick did with rehauling his organization. At a time he had Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. all driving for him at the same time. Casey Kane in there, a few other drivers as the fourth entry. At one point, they shifted to a younger group of drivers, including William Byron, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, and most recently Kyle Larson joining the fray as well. So Rick Hendrick, to get this victory at the start of their 40th year as an organization, the Ruby anniversary, by the way, we learned that when We found out they'll be driving some ruby-colored cars in Martinsville later this year. But for Hendrick, it is a 9th win in the Daytona 500, tying him with Richard Petty Enterprises for the most as a team owner all time.
I can't believe 40 years ago when I showed up down here, I didn't think I should be here. And we finished in the top 10, but to tie the all-time record and to do it on our 40th anniversary when we're celebrating all year long for 40, it's special.
I mean, a Daytona 500 win is always special, but it's been a decade since we've won this race. And through that time, it just reminds you how hard this race is to win, to see the celebration. There's just no other thing, that you can explain of how unique and exciting it is to win the Daytona 500.
Yeah, 3-time winner. He certainly knows all about that. Let's bring you out to the Cupdate wall. By the way, this is how it all started when we talk about the Cupdate and what is now a much longer show that you're watching here on social media. It started as a segment on Action Sports Jax Primetime. We've decided to expand it to give you even more NASCAR coverage here in Action Sports Jax, but the wall remains. You got to keep the wall, the NASCAR Cupdate wall. This is where we got it going. And of course, that victory for Byron was certainly worth the wait as they notch off the first race of the season. Remember, 25 more races. We hit the postseason, 10-race sprint to the finish to see who is the Cup Series champion. We'll get to that. That's a long way from now. But let's take a look at your top 5. And in this race, it's really who survived and who had that last push at the end. Byron and Bowman going 1-2 is bananas. When you consider the fact that we showed you the big one earlier, these are the two guys who really started that thing. Bowman's push of Byron put him into the rest of the field and took out all the competitors. So they still end up 1-2 despite that. Christopher Bell from Joe Gibbs in 3rd. Corey LaJoie, we'll talk more about him in a little bit, finishes 4th. And Bubba Wallace with another top 5 in the Daytona 500. So that's a look at your top 5 from this race. Let's look at some of the notables, shall we? Some of the other drivers who got caught up in some accidents, Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney, we mentioned them. How about the two guys who, for the longest time, we've been talking about how are they ever going to win the Daytona 500? Well, Martin Truex Jr. now 0 for 19, Kyle Busch 0 for 18. Actually 0 for 20, 0 for 19 for the two of them. So combined 39 attempts at the Daytona 500, and they are unable to get the win. Chase Elliott, another guy we expect to see in victory lane at some point at the Daytona 500, just not this year. So for some of these drivers, this race right here was a big chance to get that big win. I mean, we talk about it every single season where the Daytona 500 can be won by absolutely anybody. And to come up as close as guys like Bell, LaJoie, Wallace, even Bowman did, it is heartbreaking to get so close to lifting that Harley J. Earl trophy, but unable to do it. Mentioned a few of the drivers who we're about to hear from, just about how devastating it is to get so close and to survive what was the big one in that wreck and still have a chance to go win it. Not everybody can be happy by the end of the day.
There's both, right? It's a hell of a payday. It's a hell of a points day for our team to start the year. We put a clean car in the box, and we're getting a little bit closer. So I'm super happy for Byron Motorsports Chili's team.
I made a mistake there on the last lap and kind of got indecisive and messed up our lanes.
How much of a roller coaster of emotions is this race? I mean, you guys are ticking off laps and then shoot 10 laps to go. Big one happens and you got to kind of regroup and get ready for that end.
Yeah, just glad we made it through. Obviously, could have very well been caught up in that. So glad we got through it, and we'll try again in Atlanta.
If you're looking for two favorites in Atlanta, by the way, how about those two guys? Corey LaJoie, that's probably his best track on the circuit. Again, we'll talk more LaJoie in a minute. But for Chase Elliott, of course, from Dawsonville, Georgia, big fan of racing in his home state in Atlanta. So certainly one of your best bets if you're looking to bet on who's going to win in Atlanta this upcoming weekend. So welcome to Victory Lane. William Byron as the first of our drivers. Remember, by the end of last year, this regular season, this box was full, and we will see it fill up over the course of this season as well. But you get in this box, and you're virtually assured of making it into the postseason. That is the goal, after all. So you get in victory lane, you get your name in green because you are locked in to the playoffs. I say locked in because I think one of these years we're going to get 17 different winners in those first 26 races, and then somebody's going to be left out. So they're locked in until otherwise noticed. A look at the standings, and one of the nice things for a guy like Chase Elliott, you see him all the way up there in 4th, even though he finished outside the top 10. That's because he won stage 1. He gets that playoff point, as does Ryan Blaney. So not a total loss, even though he wrecked out in the big one. He won stage 2. He gets a playoff point as well. This will all shift a lot over the coming weeks and months. So the race, of course, run on a Monday this week instead of its traditional Sunday. Let's give a shout out to the fans, shall we? What a terrific atmosphere it was at Daytona International Speedway on Monday. All the fans and The Rock, of course, the last of the dignitaries to hang around for the Great American Race. He was the Grand Marshal and gave those most famous words in auto sports with the "Gentlemen, start your engines." And he stuck around for an extra day. I guess he wasn't appearing on Raw that night. So The Rock showing up, as well as a large amount of fans. Remember, it was a sellout. It was the fastest sellout they ever had at Daytona International Speedway, and that's 150,000 people coming to that race. So big event, big time for all those fans who had a chance to come and enjoy the Great American Race.
I'm a walking margarita, actually. So you're trying to catch a Rita. I guess I'm the Rita you're trying to catch, and you can catch it by scanning the QR codes. So you can scan this guy or this guy or this guy.
Hey, a little personality and a commitment to plugging your sponsor goes a long way. Corey LaJoie showing up to Media Day covered in QR codes. Wasn't afraid to tell you all about that big logo on the hood. And for me, he's your most impressive driver of the race. We take a look at number 7, Spire Motorsports car, and he was able to keep it towards the front of the field. And Corey LaJoie knows what he's doing when it comes to these super speedway tracks. He's able to put himself in a position to win, and it wouldn't be a huge shock to see him win at either Atlanta or Talladega or even Daytona when they come back for the summer race, the Coke Zero Sugar 400. So my most impressive driver of the race, I give it to Corey LaJoie. Big things ahead for him and the folks at Spire. All right, still to come, this week's driver interview features a former Daytona 500 champion. We go one-on-one with McDriver. That's Michael McDowell coming up next right here on the Cupdate. And McDowell's name is certainly on here. It's the Harley J. Earl Trophy. Now you can add William Byron's name to that trophy as well. Stay with us on the Action Sports Jax Cupdate.
When you think sports, you think Action Sports Jax, the official station of the Jaguars, on location for every game. But the most experienced team in town doesn't stop there. From high school football to the big events in the area, Action Sports Jax is always on. Coming soon, we take that to a new level. Action Sports Jax 24/7 is around-the-clock coverage of the teams you love and the moments you can't miss. The best local sports in Jacksonville on Action Sports Jax 24/7.
It's Michael McDowell from Arizona, a Daytona 500 champion.
Oh, it was a strange time, 2021, not just in sports, but the entire world. You might notice where this video was shot from. They actually put us up in the suites that year for the Daytona 500 because we weren't allowed anywhere near the garage or the drivers or victory lane. COVID. It was a strange time, but not a strange time for Michael McDowell, who picked up his first victory at the Great American Race. What a moment for him to get that win. Welcome back to the Action Sports Jax Cupdate. Michael McDowell, not so good this time around in the Daytona 500. Had some early troubles, never able to get it back into the pack. Let's get a little introduction to Michael McDowell, shall we? He had his Cup debut way back in 2008, so for 16 years. By the way, the early years, lots of starting parks. Remember when that was a thing? I'm glad it's not anymore. Of course, he had the huge breakthrough in 2021, earning a championship at the Daytona 500, his first ever win, but it wasn't his only win in the Cup Series. He would add a second last year on the Indy Road Course. We had a chance to catch up with Michael McDowell about the Daytona 500 and his group over at Front Row Motorsports.
We've been building this program and getting better and better. Had a great year last year and feel like with not a lot of changes to the car and not a lot of changes to personnel, we're going to be able to continue to build on that and get better and better. And so we're in that tight window. We're in that window where making that next jump is really challenging, where you go from, being in the top 10 consistently to now being in the top 5 consistently. And it's a huge jump.
Being in Jacksonville, being right up the road from Daytona, I want to take you back to 2021 and just that race, winning the Daytona 500. Everyone always says it's life-changing. You've now had 3 years since it happened. If you can give me an example of, one of those moments you had where you're just, doing your thing and then being a Daytona 500 champion just kind of smacks you in the face and hits you like that.
Yeah, there's different moments like that. You know, in particular, racing, you're only as good as your last race. And, I feel like it's like that in all, not just sports, but in life, right? You're only as good as your last sell, your last interview, your last deal. But the Daytona 500 is prestigious and it's big enough that you do have those reminders that are fun to not just relive, but just reflect. I think would probably be the best way to describe it, where you realize like not everybody has this, and not everybody's had an opportunity to experience what we get to experience in winning that race. And so, it's a cool moment that you remember for sure. And there's different times where it seems far away. But it's a reminder of how, cool this sport is, that, you could be having a rough year or a rough career and capture these moments. And if you just look at the trajectory of our team and really the 34 car and results from 2021 moving forward, it's just been, incredible how much we've improved. And, I wouldn't say that all that comes from winning the Daytona 500, but it surely helped. It helped with our partnerships. It helped with our relationship with Ford Performance, helped with our alliances. It helped motivate people. It helped, just bring energy and life back into areas that needed a little bit of pep. And so, our sport has a lot of momentum to it, and momentum isn't something that you can just create. It comes with consistently performing and building. And so that was one of those key moments that helped get us moving in a good direction and kind of jumpstart some of the things that we needed to have happen.
Racing has plenty of really cool trophies. Harley JRL trophy, that's a pretty cool one to have on the mantle at home, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a heavy one too. It's not one you move around a lot. But it's super special. And, even just the history and just the prestige of Daytona, like, being able to show my kids, the outside of the Daytona, Hall of Fame there in the sidewalk, you have your name engraved on the big Harley J. Earl, right? The one that stays at Daytona. My ugly mug's on there, right? Like things like that. So it's a pretty cool opportunity to, to stamp your name in history. And it's one of those races that people don't forget.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And, you certainly had to wait long enough to get to that point, to get to that win, the first win in your Cup Series career. You didn't have to wait as long for the second one. I mean, that had to be so nice that last year you guys go out there and you dominate on the road course at Indy to get another win. I think that's all part of what you were saying with that upward trajectory of your race team over there at Front Row Motorsports.
Yeah, it was super rewarding. I think that nothing will, replace or even come close to the magnitude of winning the 500. But the winning Indy last year was very special as well. And I think mostly because when you look at an Indy race or a road course or a short track or something like that, in order to win those races, you really have to have the best car. You have to have the best strategy, and you have to execute pit stops. Everything has to go just right. And I feel like that was our best performance as a group, as a team, and the most speed that we've had. And so to be able to do it the way we did it was very rewarding, because it wasn't something we backed into. It, we controlled the race. We were the fastest car. We executed it on pit road. We did everything that we needed to do as a group. And we finished it off, which you don't always get to, right? Caution comes out and you get crashed on a restart, and then it's all over and we're not having this conversation. So, but we also knew it was coming. And what I mean by that, that's not being arrogant, but we were the second best car at Sonoma, had a shot at winning that race. We felt like we have consistently over the last 2 years been a top 3 car at most of the road courses. So it wasn't something where we were sitting there, thinking that it wasn't possible. We knew it was possible, and we knew we were close, and we just needed those last few tweaks and last few development with the car, and for me, adjusting some style and technique and different things like that to really get us to that next level where we could, put it all together and get a win.
All right, still to come here on the Cupdate, our different drive segment heads to the Xfinity Series, and a familiar name from years gone by, that is coming up next. And how about a shout out to the King? You're looking at 14 combined Cup Series championships right there between Richard Petty and Jimmy Johnson. The King in attendance for the Daytona 500 on a Monday, and always rocking his Stetson hat. Good to see the King out and about there at Daytona.
When you think sports, you think Action Sports Jacks, the official station of the Jaguars, on location for every game. But the most experienced team in town doesn't stop there. From high school football to the big events in the area, Action Sports Jacks is always on. Coming soon, we take that to a new level. Action Sports Jacks 24/7 is around-the-clock coverage of the teams you love and the moments you can't miss. The best local sports in Jacksonville on Action Sports Jacks 24/7.
Next up for the Cup Series and the rest of NASCAR is a trip to Atlanta Motor Speedway. Here's a look at your weekend schedule. Starts at 2 o'clock on Saturday with the trucks. Nice doubleheader there for the fans that want to get in at a low cost. Check out some great racing. Xfinity at 5 and the Cup Series on a Sunday at 3 o'clock. The best part, by the way, the weather's supposed to cooperate for the first time this Cup Series season. It didn't in LA, it didn't in Daytona, but Atlanta, fingers crossed, should be good to go. All right, it is time on our show for what we like to call a different drive. A week ago, we talked about the sprint cars, the dirt track racing, and how cool that is outside of Daytona over at Volusia County Speedway and really all over the country at short tracks near your hometown. Let's talk a little bit about the Xfinity Series. We mentioned that they're racing on Saturday. Well, they had a certain driver that you may be familiar with in this most recent season opener at Daytona. Let's bring in Action Sports Jack's Olivia Tasley for more of the story on Frankie Muniz in the middle.
Frankie Muniz is no stranger to big stage debuts. He was discovered in a talent show at the age of 8 and quickly made his way into the Hollywood scene. Now, nearly 3 decades later, Muniz makes another debut. But instead of going in front of the camera, he went behind the wheel.
Frankie Muniz from the Fox Sunday night hit Malcolm in the middle.
23 years ago, Frankie Muniz was riding shotgun in the pace car for the Great American Race. On Monday, the lifelong NASCAR fan takes his own spin, this time from the driver's seat.
I'm excited to announce that I will be attempting to make my NASCAR Xfinity debut at Daytona International Speedway, route on the 35.
Monday's Xfinity Series race will mark the biggest of his career and more than a decade in the making. A milestone that isn't going unnoticed by NASCAR's best drivers.
This is his second attempt, right? I mean, he tried to do open wheel racing a long time ago, had to go back to work, and then, getting to do this again, it's cool to see him just trying to live out his dream.
It is cool. He's always had a passion for it. I mean, even in those early days, like I remember seeing him at Long Beach Grand Prix. They had that Pro-Am celebrity race that they would do, and now he's coming in midlife and trying to do that. It's very, very tough. But motorsports is probably one of the few sports that is possible. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of making up time, and that's hard to do.
How do I get to do this? Like, it's so cool.
I think it's really cool, honestly. I mean, to see his passion for racing and the way he got into it, living out in California and things like that, and, kind of not giving up a career, but making a move from what he was doing, to pursue a career in racing is really neat.
It's not just Daytona for Muniz in 2024. This year, he will have a chance to prove himself racing a part-time schedule in the Xfinity Series. In the studio, I'm Olivia Tasley, Action Sports Jacks.
All right, good stuff there from Olivia Tasley. Going to be really interesting to see Frankie Muniz over the course of this season and what he can do. He did pretty well in the ARCA Series a year ago. Now he gets a chance at a much higher level here at the Xfinity Series of NASCAR. All right, that's it for this edition of the Cupdate. By the way, let us know what you think. Go follow us on social media at StewartASJacks. Leave a comment. Let me know what you want to see, and we'll continue to bring it to you throughout the NASCAR season. All right, we leave you with some more of the sights and sounds from the Great American Race, Daytona International Speedway. And it might have been a day late, but it was still a whole lot of fun for all those fans you see out there in the grandstands in attendance, checking out one of the best races all year long. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Stuart Weber, and this is the Action Sports Jacks Cupdate.